Dude, we just saw Thunderbolts. It's the second installment in Marvel's Phase 5. Stick around because it might be an extension of Phase 4, or who knows, maybe they course corrected. Check it out. All right, before we get into this nitty gritty of the Thunderbolts, because it's been a long time coming, this one has. That's going to be Kingsley over there in the B seat, the cool background. I'm going to be Winterwolf over here in the A seat, and I couldn't be bothered to hook up my green screen for the second year in a row. And we are going to talk Thunderbolts because I have a feeling the opinions are going to surprise you. Let me just get you guys the synopsis real quick, and then I'm going to let Kingsley go on what he thought of the movie, get some highs and lows out of him. So it's in a world, MCU world post-Avengers. There are no heroes. There's some villains. We're going to see some villains in here. But Yelena and all her reject friends, John Walker, Ghost, Task Manager. I'm glad they force closed that early. Red Guardian and a couple other folks are going to show up and going to duel out against the Sentry, who didn't know he was Sentry until he knew he was Sentry, and then he wasn't Sentry, and then he was Void, and then he was not Sentry again. And everything's pretty standard after that. It really is a Marvel movie. Kingsley had a prediction that was correct. I want to give him a shout out on that right off the rip. There was puppet strings on Sentry, which was a nice touch. Yeah, that's kind of, it really is pretty straightforward. The kind of subplotty stuff about the mental illness, I think is about having identified that as something that kind of drives the story. I mean, it did, but I don't think it wasn't bad. I think it was mostly effective. I thought in the end it was very effective with the kind of the finale. So I'll give it some kudos when we get there. But what did you think of Thunderbolts? What worked for you?
I think Thunderbolts was a great movie overall. I was entertained. I enjoyed myself. I think the comedic timing of a lot of the actors worked out great. But the family dynamic that's in it, and the way it tackled mental illness, and the way it kind of drove Bob, I think it was really well done, because a lot of the things that he was going through and a lot of things that were said are things that I've said to myself when I was going through my time. So it really hit home. I felt it. So I think they delivered an outstanding performance, and I do like this movie.
Yeah, I think that in an otherwise middle of the road Marvel entry, when you hand middle of the road material to actors that can elevate, you get elevated stuff. So you got to bump things up a notch. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming down on it. It's pretty straightforward. There's no surprises. It's highly predictable. But again, I think it's supposed to be, because they were trying to give you the message like that this wasn't a murder mystery. They were trying to lay into the whole broken people supporting each other into being less broken together. Like that was kind of their gimmick. And the comment I made to a friend after we had bounced from the movie was, this hit me kind of as a grown-up version of what Inside Out 2 did for kids regarding anxiety, and how they depicted anxiety at the end of the movie, it being so worked up that you freeze, that you don't know what to do, so you do nothing. I think how they dealt with depression in this one kind of worked, analogously the opposite way, where, sometimes you're in a spot and you relive that worst part over and over and over again. And even if you try to punch your way out of it alone, sometimes that's not enough. Yep. Is that you really do need backup and support, and you need to, reach out for help and then accept it when it comes. Plenty of people don't get better because they don't accept the help. But outside of a couple of standard action beats, the car chase scene, probably the best action beat in the movie.
I like the first fight.
I did like it.
I think the first fight was pretty. No, the first fight when all of them together, because you said that her friends. They weren't friends. They didn't know they all worked for the same person.
I meant Yelena and company. I meant Yelena and friends, like Yogi Bear and friends, like that kind of thing. They were definitely not friends. One of them shot the other one in the face.
Yep. Which I said to you, they like they listened to the internet, and they closed one of the loopholes in that, because you kept saying in all of our other reviews, like, who wants to see a movie with Taskmaster in there?
Nobody.
And we didn't really see a movie with Taskmaster in there, did we?
Yep. I think they had a little bit of more insight on that as well too, because when I was texting you the B Vengers and the Not My Avengers thing, that those were not my comments. Those were the things that came up in the mid-credit reel at the end.
Yes, that was so funny.
And I'm like, they know. Like, they know. They're like, a lot of people are actually going to say that crap, because most of those headlines were kind of hilariously negative. Yeah. And then a couple of them were positive, like, not too bad. Let's see what happens. Where do they go from here? And I'm like, they effing knew it. Like, they actually do pay attention to like that kind of sentiment. So it is kind of funny that they smoked we should have done the spoiler thing, but screw it. That they did write her out early. But dude, could you imagine being the actress there? Like you finally get the call back, and then like you get the one scene and you take a 45 to the face mask, and that's it. Like, okay. It's kind of like in Suicide Squad, right? Where the weasel or whatever just like died. No, not weasel. Boomerang just dies on the beach. Like that's a wrap.
And
weasel, they got weasel
technically
early.
died on the beach, but then he came back after.
Boomerang got the boomerang to the face back though. So
Yeah.
I mean, he was all done. But yeah, no. So I think they were probably aware. But I'll say this to its credit, that one of the things that worked best for me here, right, is that it felt like it was one movie. It didn't feel like it had been cut, reshot 75 times, new director, half of a new script. You know, it didn't feel like they filmed 2 or 3 action set pieces and they were like, okay, now finish the script and we'll build around that. It just felt like a damn movie.
Yeah.
You know, so big thumbs up for feeling like a movie.
Yeah, I think this will be a great installment and a breath of fresh air compared to what some of the other stuff we've been getting since Endgame.
We should have pulled some budget numbers, but I feel like too, it was probably really scaled back here. I mean, outside of like the very end of the movie with some of the special effects for, you know, Sentry flying in the shadow void effect thing. I mean, where do they go big on the effects here? Like Ghost, probably, with like the teleporting and the phasing stuff. But it seemed fairly grounded effects wise, so it probably didn't cost them $500 billion to make this.
Some of the falling rocks, some of the other like big disaster type scenes were probably CGI'd in there. But
they
if
had
you actually
a lot of physical sets,
if you watch the full credits, which you probably did, because you know there was a big reveal at the end. Their special effects names were quite shorter than most Marvel movies as well. So
where it usually scrolls for about 10.5 minutes to get to all the effects artists. So I think it definitely felt smaller scale, and that doesn't mean lesser. That doesn't mean weaker. That doesn't mean not as good. It felt like a more grounded story that's centered around Yelena. I'm not particularly sold on her as probably like an actress or a character. Like I whatever. But the dynamics for her and Red Guardian are good. How they all kind of did warm up to each other was good. They cribbed a little bit of the Guardians of the Galaxy, the power of friendship thing, how the 3 of them had to enter the void to go after her because she went after Bob. Like, so all that stuff worked out okay. I thought that was all right.
Well, they came into the conclusion that there has to be a way out. Right. And that's what she came to first in there, because they all had that moment where he touched them, and then they kind of relived a really dark moment in their life. US Agent was when his wife left him because he was so distraught about not being Captain America anymore. It was Yelena when she was training at the Red Room.
Yep.
What
did you think of her as a villain? If you don't mind me jumping you on the spot for that, because I thought that's the weakest point of the movie for me was her.
I think she did pretty good as a villain. Director of the CIA kind of weaseled her way in there. I love how they never said what party was in charge. They always just said the other side of the aisle, which I think is a great way to stay neutral, because guess what? Republicans and Democrats both watch Marvel movies. So you don't want to alienate anybody. So I think that works out well. I think some people are going to draw their conclusions, but that's on you. That's not on them moving forward. I think she did great as someone who kept trying to. I think she's a great villain who thinks on her feet. Think of like not Lex Luthor style, but that person who can see their plan going wrong and then pivot real quick and then try to work things around it. And I think she did that quite well. Like she always found an out.
Yep, and especially at the end. Like the end was one big out where she basically, as it all resolves itself, and they see her standing there talking on her phone for evac. She steps through the wreckage of like a tarp, and bada bing. I won't tell you guys what happens, but basically you get the Thunderbolts' real name going forward, and that sets up all kinds of controversy. And I'm sure the internet's going to have a field day with that. But I think my problem with Val as a character is every time I see Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I just see Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld, and even her her characteristic laugh and smile and sneer, they're all Elaine's mannerisms put on display here. So it felt too quirky when I was already getting enough comic relief from Red Guardian. So it kind of undermined that tension I'm always looking for in the villain. And I get it. Not every villain can be like Amanda Waller. Like I get that, because otherwise everybody will just say, oh, you're just trying to be. I get that, but it was still a little too much goofiness from her.
I don't think it was goofiness. I think it was more trying to be that politician playing every circuit. So she has to be shaking hands, or kissing hands and shaking babies. So
kissing hands and shake. Anyway, maybe do, but I just felt like it was a little too shit-eating grin for me, goofy. I don't know. I can see what you're saying. I do. It just if there was anything to draw a negative from, it was that. I had an observation. I wanted to see if your theater reacted the same way. A lot of people chuckled along with most of the jokes, like you said. That there were some funny beats. There were a couple of really good sight gags. One of the ones that steps out to me is when they're in the limo and the convoy rolls up on him and everybody's telling him to drive faster. And he goes, "Hold on, we're getting started." He floors it, and then it flashes to the speedometer. It's like 52, 53, 52, and like that was it. Like they had a lot of good visual like flips like that, and I thought that was pretty cool. So people were chuckling at that stuff for you too.
Yeah, it was
cool.
It had the funny beats and it was well-timed comedy.
Yeah,
it wasn't just a thrown in there. And like when it was heartfelt, it was heartfelt.
Yeah,
like when Red Guardian and her were talking on the street corner before the building starts falling down. I think that would hit well, and he didn't throw out a stupid joke. He just talked about like I want my daughter. Dude,
I was I was 100% gonna text you that like in the theater. I'm like, dude, they actually let a moment sit. Now they had 4 or 5 other moments in the movie where they didn't undermine all the way, but the next line after a dramatic line was kind of a sarcastic kind of quip, but not like an outright joke. Like he gave near that scene, he gave her the speech. And she was like, okay, that was pretty good. Like, I don't credit that as like an undermining because that's what that person would say there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you've watched a lot of her dialogue throughout the whole thing, is that is who she is. Like, I love the part where she's complaining about her job and she's like, but she's there telling a guy she has tied up in a lab
who gets shot in the face a minute later, by the way.
Collateral damage.
Damn it. I can't use that face now on the scientist, which was pretty funny. So I thought that was all good. The other big reaction in the theater that I wanted to get here, because I'm tying it into a point that comes up in that the extra scene at the end when they're on the highway and she shoots the Humvee. She hops out the window and she pops off like a pistol shot and it explodes. And right away I'm like, here we go. This is it. This is where now. And then there's the gag. You see the circle disc blow up the next one. And the minute Bucky drove through the explosion, dude, my theater actually erupted in cheers. It was crazy. I don't know if you guys got that, but people were like, oh, damn, Winter Soldier's here. And I'm like, if that's not the evidence that you should have given this guy a movie 5 years ago or made him Captain America, I don't know what to tell you. Because that's what it meant to me. That's how it hit me. Like, that's the only time people cheered in this movie was that. Not the big ring scene at the end where they're all standing there after they push the wall up, which was cool. That was like team coming together. It wasn't when they all rescued Bob himself at the end, and I thought that was a hell of an emotional beat. That dude sold that role playing 3 different characters. Yeah, that shit's crazy. Not 1, not 2, 3.
You know who his dad is, right?
No idea.
Bill Pullman.
Oh, that makes sense then. Now that I remember the name, Lewis Pullman. Okay.
Yeah,
dude, that guy. He does kind of look like his dad. Now that you say that,
that's why. Like during the whole movie, it was like shocking. With I'm like, I know that face. Where do I know him from? And then
even the nose and the smile. You're right. It is like the whole face. Yeah, no, he sold it, especially when he's in the dude on the ground and pound, and the room starts to vibrate a little bit, and I think it was Winter Soldier's like, oh, something's wrong here, and you start to realize him beating the crap out of this dude is not going to win. They're not going to be able to do that. And then they go that Guardians of the Galaxy Inside Out 2 route where it's the power of friendship, found family thing, and they all kind of break free of their restraints. Red Guardian, just enough gut to get the bar off so she can go run and get over. And then she grabs him, and then it was just Bucky and Wyatt Russell's character. What's his name? Walker. Walker gets over there, and they basically just wrap him up and pull him back because that was the whole push of the movie is we're all fucking alone all the time, and it sucks.
Yeah,
you don't have to be alone, Bob. You don't have to be, and that was the big save there. So that was nice. And he sold out the lip quivering, eyes watering up. Like he sold that for me. I'm like, okay, cool. The rest of the movie was kind of just a ride.
The void thing
that was it.
Is like I really connected with that part because
I think a lot of people will.
for a long time, I did feel like I had that void, and I felt it with everything. Like he was looking for something. He was filling it with drugs. He was traveling the world, probably filled it with women, being very promiscuous. I was going through the same thing a little after 2010, and I was doing the same thing, filling this big void with alcohol, with fast food, women,
and whatever's on hand. Yep, I think that's what I said. It's kind of the grown-up version, and people are going to say it's heavy-handed with the imagery and how they kept referencing we're all losers, we all suck, we all this, we all that. But I'm like, it was only the trailer that ever really tried to make this out to look like it was some goofy Guardians of the Galaxy Suicide Squad thing. Like the tone of the movie was never over the top goofy ever at all. So, I mean, the marketing might have been a little off because it set that kind of tone. But this was played very seriously, in terms of the depression and the isolation stuff. And the character design for Void alone, I think, is a perfect visual representation of how like people feel about that. It's just black.
Yeah.
White, dim white eyes, it's literally a void. And its method of destroying you isn't like a Infinity War Thanos snap thing with like the dust. And it's like, no, you're just poof. You're a
shadow.
That's
a shadow of yourself.
Shadow burned on the wall, from like an A-bomb, but quiet, nothing loud, nothing flashy. And then the version of like the void that you get sucked into, that's exactly what that feels like, of what you're reliving, over and over. And even if you try to punch your way out like
moments.
she did, it wasn't until she was able to
went to something worse.
Yep. Every single time. And and I thought the only thing that might have been on the nose was when she confronted the worst version of herself. It wasn't a fight so much as that version of herself woke up and tried to like pour more vodka in her mouth in a fight. I mean, it wasn't like comical, like it wasn't played for laughs. It was very serious.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, that's a little on the nose. We get it. You're an alcoholic. You said you were 10 times in the movie, but I can't even nitpick that because everything leading into it was done so well. Do we have the flavor guide there? Because I'm ready to jump right into.
So you ready to get into rankings?
Let's cook. Let's do it.
Boom.
And you're the guest and you saw it first. So dude, pick your where are we at? Where's the quality today?
I was going to go a little bit lower, but thinking back and when I was driving and delivering today, I just kept going like how this was a well-rounded movie. It was shot well. The themes all hit, the actors all delivered. So I'm putting this right in the middle of Pitmaster. It is 8.5.
8.5 is a solid score. Dude, I'm gonna go a little lower. I'm gonna give it a straight up 7. I'm gonna go low and slow. Missing a little something here, maybe in some kind of the creativity in between the scenes where they get locked in the bunker and where they make their when they get out and have everything leading into the Sentry confrontation. Didn't drag. The movie cooked. We didn't even mention that. Like it paced very well. Like it wasn't 6.5 days long. I wasn't bored. I didn't check my phone. But it just felt like it was fairly standard fare leading into that. Like I've seen this movie before in a bunch of different ways from Marvel. It's not the Marvels. It's not the Eternals. It's somewhere right in the middle of the pack. It's characters that I didn't necessarily want to see in a movie, but I'm not annoyed that like they all showed up and had a day out at the park. So, low and slow is good. We'll give it a straight up 7. Not awful. And I think the box office is going to reflect that because I think people are going to be surprised when it returns at least through the first weekend. I think I think it's going to meet expectations I haven't checked yet. All right, let's get out of here then.
All right. See ya.